Perhaps you've heard the story of the Tower of Babel, but I guarantee there are details you haven't imagined. Imagine a world where everyone speaks the same language, where humanity, united, decides to build a tower so tall it reaches the sky. Sounds incredible, right? But behind this epic narrative lies a surprising truth that can change your perspective on ambition, power, and what it really means to challenge limits. Let's uncover the mysteries and lessons this ancient story has to offer, and maybe even find answers to the deeper questions we all have. Nimrod is a figure that has always attracted attention in ancient stories, and it's no wonder. He was known as a mighty hunter and a determined leader who spared no effort to achieve his goals. This emblematic figure is remembered for founding the city of Babel, along with other important cities, driven by a bold desire to create something grand. He not only led the construction of cities, but also embodied a spirit of defiance and independence. This desire to challenge God's will is noteworthy. It's one of those examples of how unbridled ambition can lead to unexpected consequences. Ancient texts speak of Nimrod as someone who, besides being a hunter, was an empire builder. He established several important cities, transforming them into centers of power and influence. It's interesting to think how at the time, building a city wasn't just about erecting buildings. It was an act of asserting presence, of showing the world the capacity for organization and command. Babylon, for instance, became a symbol of power and, at the same time, of defiance against divine authority. And with this city building, Nimrod also planted the seeds of a future empire. Speaking of future empires, it's impossible not to mention the episode of the Tower of Babel, which was perhaps the peak of Nimrod and his people's ambition. The idea was simple but bold: to build a tower that reached the heavens, symbolizing the human desire to equal God. But this construction, which began as a symbol of unity, ended up becoming a lesson about the dangers of pride and excessive ambition. The Tower of Babel is one of the most fascinating and enigmatic stories of antiquity. The idea of building a tower that reached the heavens emerged as a symbol of unity and boundless ambition. The people, all speaking a single language, united around this grand objective, wanting to reach the divine, almost as if they wanted to touch the unreachable. This monumental construction was not just a building, but a declaration of independence and self-sufficiency. And who hasn't felt tempted to push boundaries, to want more than what is possible? However, the story of the Tower of Babel is a reminder of the dangers of hubris, the excessive pride that leads to ruin. By attempting to build a path to heaven, the builders ended up challenging the very divine order. The result was one of the most iconic events in the biblical narrative: the confusion of languages. God, seeing the audacity of men, decided to scatter them across the earth, creating a multiplicity of languages that would prevent them from communicating and consequently from continuing their work. This divine intervention was not just a punishment, but a redefinition of human limits. With the languages confused, the construction of the tower became unfeasible, and the people were dispersed. This story makes us reflect on the importance of communication and cooperation. Today, in a globalized world, the idea of multiple languages can be seen as a metaphor for the challenges of communication and understanding between different cultures. The Tower of Babel teaches us that despite our differences, the pursuit of understanding and unity is fundamental. Nebuchadnezzar, too, is a figure resonating with power and mystery in ancient history. As the king of Babylon, He expanded his empire to unprecedented levels, conquering territories and consolidating his rule. He is famous for his great constructions, including the legendary Hanging Gardens of Babylon, considered one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Imagine a lush oasis in the middle of the desert. These gardens, supposedly built for his wife, reflect the grandeur and splendor he wanted to imprint on his reign. Nebuchadnezzar was undoubtedly a man of great ambitions and achievements. However, not even the most powerful kings are immune to error. Nebuchadnezzar's arrogance is a crucial part of his story. He considered himself invincible, almost divine, a sentiment that led to a confrontation with God's will. The biblical narrative tells us that, in a moment of excessive pride, Nebuchadnezzar was punished by God. He lost his sanity and was transformed into a beast, living like a wild animal for 7 years. This event was not only a humiliation, but a lesson in humility. It is a clear example of how power and sovereignty, without proper acknowledgement of something greater, can lead to downfall. After his period of transformation, Nebuchadnezzar finally recognized divine sovereignty and regained his throne. This story shows us how even the greatest leaders can be remembered not only for their achievements, but also for their failures and redemptions. It serves as a warning to those in positions of power who forget the importance of humility and self-criticism. The fall of Babylon is one of the most emblematic stories about the fragility of earthly power. After the grand era of Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon continued to prosper under the reign of his successors, but the city was not destined to last forever. Under the rule of Belshazzar, the son of Nebuchadnezzar, the city fell into moral and spiritual decay. The biblical narrative tells of a feast where Belshazzar, in his arrogance, used the sacred vessels from the Temple of Jerusalem to serve wine to his guests. This act of disrespect and idolatry was one of the moments that precipitated the city's downfall. The conclusion of Babylon's story came suddenly and unexpectedly. The Medes and Persians, led by Cyrus the Great, took advantage of the weakness and corruption spreading through the city. In a strategic maneuver, the Persian forces diverted the course of the Euphrates River, which flowed through the city, allowing their troops to invade Babylon with virtually no resistance. The city, which had been a symbol of power and opulence, fell quickly, thus fulfilling the biblical prophecies that had foretold its destruction. It was a stark reminder that no city, no matter how powerful, is above the forces of justice and providence. The fall of Babylon is, therefore, an event filled with symbolism and lessons. It shows how arrogance and injustice can lead to the downfall of even the most powerful empires. The story not only narrates a historical event, but also offers a reflection on the transience of power and the importance of maintaining humility and justice. With the fall of Babylon, an era came to an end. But the lessons that this story teaches continue to resonate to this day. The story of Babylon is rich in lessons that transcend time and reach us as a clear and powerful warning. Firstly, the narrative of excessive pride and rebellion against God shows us how these behaviors can lead to downfall and ruin. The trajectory of Nimrod, the construction of the Tower of Babel, and the arrogance of Nebuchadnezzar are vivid examples of how pride can blind and distance people from what is truly important. It is like building a sandcastle by the sea, without considering that the high tide will inevitably come. The story reminds us that, no matter how talented or powerful we may be, we must always maintain humility and respect for the forces beyond our control. Furthermore, the fall of Babylon underscores the importance of alignment with divine will. In the biblical story, The city is often associated with idolatry and injustice, traits that eventually led to its destruction. This serves as a reminder for all of us about the importance of living a just life and adhering to high moral principles. Practically, we can apply this lesson in our daily lives by striving to be just and compassionate in our actions. It's not just about avoiding evil, but actively seeking good and truth in our interactions and decisions. The narrative of Babylon invites us to reflect on the transience of earthly power and the importance of focusing on what is eternal. The grandeur and opulence of Babylon were not enough to save it from destruction. This leads us to consider what truly matters in our lives. Instead of pursuing fleeting glory, perhaps we should focus on building something more enduring, like meaningful relationships and a life of integrity. The story of Babylon is not just a chronicle of the past, but a mirror that invites us to look at the present and rethink our priorities. Throughout this journey, through the ancient tales of Babylon and the Tower of Babel, we have seen that history is a stern but fair teacher. The lessons on humility, pride, and the pursuit of power resonate through the centuries, reminding us that no matter how much the world changes, some principles are eternal. Now the question remains, how are you applying these lessons in your life? Do you find yourself repeating the mistakes of the past, or are you seeking a path of greater understanding and respect? What can we learn from the fall of Babylon and the confusion of languages? Share your thoughts in the comments so we can reflect together. If you enjoyed this journey into the past and want to continue exploring these mysteries and lessons, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, activate notifications so you don't miss any new content that will help you better understand the world and yourself. And of course, don't miss the next video that's appearing on the screen. Let's go together on this journey of discovery and growth. After all, knowledge is power, but only when applied. So, are you ready to transform your life?